If you have been following this channel, last week we saw that the All In podcast kind of talked about how Nvidia and how about 47% of Nvidia's revenue goes to China and Chinese related countries. It did seem like Chamath kind of did not understand how this happened or what was going on here and kind of shared maybe a little bit too extra bearish scenarios for Nvidia. Now, in the most recent All In podcast, it does seem like Nvidia responded and sent a message to the team explaining what's going on. Now, if you have been following this channel for many months, you would have already known to ignore this. But is Nvidia and the Singapore, Taiwan, and Chinese market really something that Nvidia investors should be worried about? Let's take a closer look in today's episode, and we're also going to take a closer look at some upcoming earnings that I think every Nvidia investor should be familiar with.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
All right, so first thing what I want to do is kind of just look at Nvidia's revenue and by pretty much countries. So here, the four countries that I have are in pink is China, in orange is Singapore, and in blue is in Taiwan. And I also just want to have individually the United States revenue. And this is for the past few fiscal years. Now, for their most recent fiscal year, we can see that Nvidia roughly made $61.3 billion of revenue from the United States and $61.4 billion from those three kind of Asian-based countries, like I mentioned, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore. Now, if we kind of look at here in the All In podcast, they mentioned, I think we can all do the math, about 47% of all Nvidia's revenue goes to China and Chinese related companies. And I think when you peel back this onion, what you will find is a whole raft of companies that were stood up to buy these Nvidia GPUs to essentially act as a way station for China. Let's have a thought. And pretty much what Chamath was kind of talking about here is that Nvidia was sending a lot of chips to China or China-related countries, and that's why the Chinese market was developing AI solutions so quickly. Now, I've talked about this in the past, but here, I mean, when you look at it in a top-level review, you could kind of say this is scary, and this is for someone who I would say should be not familiar with the market and just a quick, simple 10K SEC report or something where they can find the answer, right? So a few days ago, I kind of did an episode where I talked about those thoughts and shared why, as an Nvidia investor, I personally wouldn't be worried about that. Now, if you guys are not familiar with my channel, if you Google Nvidia Singapore Jose Najarro, I actually did a video about this on March 1st of 2025. So almost 2 months ago, where I pretty much cleared up the reason of why Singapore, Taiwan, and all these other, at least Singapore and Taiwan, shouldn't really be a scary thought for Nvidia investors. But again, let's kind of just pull up Nvidia's 10K SEC report for the most recent year, and they kind of show that revenue breakdown. They mentioned that Singapore represents 18% of fiscal year of 2025 total revenue based upon customer billing location. Customers use Singapore to centralize invoicing, while our products are almost always shipped elsewhere. So it's not like shipments to Singapore were less than 2% in fiscal year of 2025. So it's not like Nvidia is sending massive amount of chips to Singapore. It's just that's where they use billing of location. And again, in that episode where I did Nvidia investors are making a huge mistake about 2 months ago, I actually mentioned that that was the case, and big companies like Google Cloud have entities in Singapore. Dell Technologies and a lot of server makers have on Singapore because it is kind of like a tax haven location. So it makes the best place to kind of have that as your billing of location, right? That's where you're billing it, and you will have some form of tax incentives or tax loopholes that can help you save money and money over time. Now, you can easily find that. I found that information in less than a few minutes. And this is why, like, when I finally, for a company that I know so well, and then to hear something like this from an individual who originally has huge investment mindsets, right? I kind of turns me off a lot. And it sucks, right? Because, again, it's not like this is information that takes someone hours to find out. You can get all the answers in a few minutes by just looking at the 10K SEC report and by just doing a quick AI kind of answer, understanding how the Singapore location works for tax incentives. So, I mean, I don't now. I've never listened to the All In podcast. The only reason I've ever been familiar with it is because of this kind of note on Nvidia. But now, because of that, if I'm looking at a podcast to learn about the semiconductor space, about the AI space, about Nvidia, this is definitely not the podcast I would listen to. Now, in their most recent podcast, and they just kind of released it a few days ago, we can kind of control F Nvidia and kind of see what they mentioned. So Chamath mentions, hey, they spoke with Nvidia last week or a few days ago, and they have to do a few cleanup. So Nvidia kind of gave them a bit of an information, and they kind of exactly what I mentioned, that 47 reported turns out that it's actually not where the chips get shipped to. So Singapore office handles the invoicing. So then I said, who are these companies that are using these places? And it turns out to be a bunch of major US companies, including US OEMs and clouds that use Singapore for their invoicing their suppliers. Overall, they are being shipped to other locations like US, Mexico, Taiwan, etc., all over the place. So it's not like you should be worried about that Singapore revenue. It's not like it's just a lot of sketchy companies. Now, you might be saying, Jose, okay, that covers up the Singapore revenue. What about the Taiwanese revenue, right? Taiwan is a very, very big revenue of this overall company. Why wouldn't I be worried about Taiwan? Well, for those that are not familiar, Taiwan is a location where a lot of AI servers are made, and a lot of AI server companies are actually there. They're manufacturing plants and all that. So if you are an AI server maker, obviously you're going to want to get it shipped to Taiwan, so then you can make your product and then ship it all over the world. So that to me is why at least the Taiwan and Singapore revenue are not a concern to me. The Chinese market, now that one's completely different. Obviously, we've talked about that in the past, but overall, in my opinion, don't listen to the bears when they talk about Singapore revenue, when they talk about Taiwan revenue. Even maybe some of those big podcasts or big YouTubers who really don't know much about Nvidia. Now, the second thing I want to talk about for Nvidia is just upcoming earnings. And this past week, we actually had some interesting earnings. We had two big players, in my opinion, really kind of give more of a bullish affirmation about the bullish thesis for Nvidia. The first one was on Wednesday, and that was Vertiv, the company that produces AI data center infrastructure. And they pretty much mentioned that their AI infrastructure solutions or data center infrastructure solutions are still seeing huge amount of growth and demand, and that there is strong AI expansion in data centers and building of data centers. So that alone is a heavy indication of AI spending continuing to be strong for multiple years. Now, the second one is Alphabet that reported on Thursday. They reported the similar, where right now they could have grown their cloud solution even faster if they had more infrastructure, and they are continuing to see strong AI growth, and that they continue to expect to spend about $75 billion in capital expenditure this year. So from these two players, we can see that the AI market is intact. Now, we do have this upcoming week, we do have some big tech reporting earnings. As an AI investor, especially as an Nvidia investor, in my opinion, there are three important players. You have Microsoft, you have Meta, and you have Amazon. These are your big cloud server providers, or two of them, and Meta is individually a big data center purchaser for its internal use cases. I just want reaffirmation of what we heard from Google, and I believe that's going to be the case. Even if the stock prices don't move after these earnings report, I get to say check to my bullish thesis, and I get to say, even though stock prices might not move tomorrow, this week, or next week, AI spending is here, and Nvidia is extremely sitting at cheap levels. Now, as a semiconductor investor, there are obviously some other companies you might want to listen to. Qualcomm, for example, reports on Wednesday after the market closes. We have Teradyne, we have Cadence, we have Amkor, that does focus in things like advanced packaging. So as an AI investor, that one might be interesting. We have NXP, and then we have Qorvo, which is somewhat in the kind of semiconductor automotive play. So I hope you guys did enjoy today's episode. Again, if you want the best NVIDIA news anywhere, and to what I say, the best research out there for free. For free. That's super important, right? Because all the information I provide here is for free. I hope you guys are enjoying it. I am back from vacation. I was out for a few days. Hope you guys had a great weekend, and I'm hoping videos are going to be popping out on a daily basis this week. So take care, make sure to hit the sub, and see you all next time.